Have you ever spent hours hunched over your garden beds, pulling weeds and spraying expensive bug repellents, only to wake up the next morning and find your favorite cabbage completely shredded by caterpillars? It is the ultimate heartbreak for any gardener. But what if I told you that you are doing way too much work? What if the secret to a pest-free, high-yielding garden requires absolutely no chemicals, no extra weeding, and practically zero physical effort? Today, we are going to talk about the lazy gardener's ultimate weapon. I am going to share 15 vegetable pairs that you should never, ever plant separately. If you plant them alone, you are basically ringing the dinner bell for every pest in the neighborhood. But put them together and they form an invisible, impenetrable shield. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to trick insects into leaving your crops alone, while actually doubling or even tripling your harvest. But I have to warn you, the very first rule of this method completely destroys everything you have been taught about spacing your plants. Are you ready to work less and harvest more? Let us get started. Before we dive into our 15 magic pairs, we need to understand how plants actually talk to each other. Yes, they communicate, but not with words. They use a fascinating biological language called allelopathy. Think of your garden not as a collection of isolated pots, but as a bustling underground city. Plants release specific chemicals through their roots and their leaves. When you plant a single crop in a massive row, which we call a monoculture, you are sending a massive neon signal into the sky that says, "Free buffet." Pests easily find their favorite food because the scent is overpowering. But in nature, plants never grow alone. They grow in a wild, tangled mess. This diversity creates a complex cloud of scents that confuses pests. By using companion planting, we are recreating this natural chaos in a controlled way. We pair a vulnerable vegetable with a strong-smelling partner. The partner acts like a bodyguard. It masks the scent of the vegetable, repels the bad bugs, and attracts the good predators. Furthermore, these pairs share energy. Just like a river distributes water, fungal networks in the soil connect these plants, allowing them to trade nutrients. Once you understand this chemical warfare, your gardening life changes forever. Let us start with a classic combination that is just as good in a garden as it is on a pizza. I am talking about tomatoes and basil. Many people think you need to keep herbs in a separate bed. This is a huge mistake. Tomatoes are incredibly vulnerable to the tomato hornworm, a massive green caterpillar that can strip a plant bare in a single night. But basil has a secret weapon. Its strong, pungent oils are highly offensive to the hornworm moth. When you plant basil right at the base of your tomato plants, the scent of the basil completely hides the scent of the tomato. It is like putting an invisibility cloak over your prized beefsteaks. The moth flies right over, totally confused, and lays its eggs somewhere else. But the benefits do not stop there. Basil actually improves the flavor of the tomatoes as they ripen, thanks to the underground exchange of trace minerals. Plus, the leafy basil shades the soil around the tomato roots, keeping the moisture locked in and preventing weeds from sprouting. It is the ultimate lazy pairing. Next up, we have a pairing that represents the perfect mutual defense pact: carrots and onions. If you have ever pulled up a beautiful carrot only to find it riddled with disgusting brown tunnels, you have met the carrot rust fly. On the other hand, onions have their own terrible enemy called the onion fly. Here's the brilliant part. The onion fly absolutely hates the smell of carrots, and the carrot rust fly cannot stand the sulfur smell of onions. By planting them side by side, they protect each other in a beautiful system of cross-cancellation. Imagine two bodyguards standing back to back. You can alternate rows of carrots and onions, or simply interplant them in the same bed. Because onions have very shallow root systems and carrots drive deep into the soil, they do not compete for space or nutrients. They peacefully share the same real estate. This means you get twice the amount of food from the exact same garden bed with absolutely zero pest damage. It is a fantastic way to maximize your yield without digging a single extra inch of soil. Our third pair takes us deep into agricultural history, corn and climbing beans. This is part of the ancient Three Sisters method, but even just pairing these two works miracles. Corn is a heavy feeder. It sucks massive amounts of nitrogen out of your soil, leaving it depleted. Beans, however, are magical little nitrogen factories. They pull nitrogen right out of the air and fix it into the soil through nodules on their roots. When you plant climbing beans at the base of your corn stalks, the beans feed the corn exactly what it needs to grow tall and strong. In return, the corn provides a perfect sturdy trellis for the beans to climb. You do not need to build any wooden supports, and you do not need to haul heavy bags of fertilizer. The plants do all the heavy lifting for you. The beans wind their way up the stalk, stabilizing the corn against strong winds. Just wait until the corn is about 6 inches tall before planting the bean seeds, so the corn gets a head start. This is smart, self-building architecture at its finest. Now let us talk about the brassica family. Cabbage and dill make an unstoppable team. If you grow cabbage, broccoli, or kale, you know the frustration of the cabbage white butterfly. It flutters around, looking innocent, but it leaves behind hundreds of hungry green caterpillars. Most gardeners reach for toxic sprays. The smart gardener reaches for dill. Dill does not just repel pests, it does something much more devious. It acts as a beacon for tiny, stingless, parasitic wasps. These wasps are the special forces of the insect world. They hunt down cabbage caterpillars, lay their eggs inside them, and neutralize the threat naturally. It sounds a bit brutal, but it is nature taking care of business. By allowing your dill to flower right next to your cabbage, you create a permanent landing pad for these helpful predators. The dill acts as a trap and a lure. Plus, the delicate feathery leaves of the dill do not block the sunlight from reaching the cabbage heads. You get a perfect harvest and plenty of fresh herbs for your pickles, all without spending a dime on pesticides. Pair number 5 is cucumbers and radishes. Cucumbers are notoriously fussy. They hate having their roots disturbed, and they are constantly under attack by the striped cucumber beetle, which carries a deadly bacterial wilt. Here is where the humble radish comes in to save the day. You are not planting radishes here to eat them. You are planting them to act as a decoy. Flea beetles and cucumber beetles are incredibly attracted to radish leaves. They will chew the radish greens to pieces and leave your precious cucumber vines completely alone. This is called trap cropping, but there is a second hidden benefit. Cucumber roots are shallow and spread wide. The soil around them can easily become compacted, suffocating the plant. As radishes grow, their taproots act like tiny plows. breaking up hard soil and creating channels for water and oxygen to reach the cucumber roots. You just leave the radishes in the ground to rot at the end of the season. They feed the worms, aerate the soil, and protect your harvest. It is the definition of lazy, brilliant gardening. Let us move to a pairing that tackles one of the toughest pests in the world: potatoes and horseradish. The Colorado potato beetle is a nightmare. It is resistant to almost every chemical spray on the market. Once they infest a potato patch, they will completely strip the foliage, stopping the potatoes from growing underground. But these beetles have one massive weakness. They are deeply repelled by the sharp, spicy oils released by horseradish roots. When you plant a horseradish crown at the corners of your potato bed, it creates an invisible force field. The beetles smell the mustard oils in the air and refuse to land. Now, you might have heard the myth that horseradish will take over your entire garden. While it is true that horseradish is aggressive, growing it in a sunken container or a large bucket right next to your potatoes keeps it contained while still providing all the chemical defense. Plus, the deep taproot of the horseradish pulls up calcium and potassium from deep within the earth, making those nutrients available to the shallow potato roots when the leaves drop. Our seventh secret pair is peppers and spinach. This combination is all about managing the sun and suppressing weeds. Bell peppers and jalapenos love the heat, but they hate having dry, baking soil around their roots. If the soil gets too hot, the pepper blossoms will simply fall off, leaving you with zero fruit. Most people spend hours hauling heavy wheelbarrows of wood chips to mulch their peppers. The lazy way is to plant a dense carpet of spinach right beneath the pepper canopy. Spinach thrives in cooler weather and actually enjoys the shade provided by the tall pepper plants. As the summer sun beats down, the pepper leaves protect the spinach from bolting and turning bitter. In return, the wide spinach leaves cover the bare earth completely. They act as a living mulch. They lock in the moisture, meaning you only have to water half as often. They also completely block the sunlight from reaching weed seeds, meaning you never have to pull a weed in that bed. It is a perfect microclimate created entirely by the plants themselves. Pair number 8 brings us to eggplants and marigolds. Eggplants are delicious, but they are an absolute magnet for flea beetles. These tiny black bugs jump like fleas and chew hundreds of microscopic holes in the eggplant leaves, stunting the plant's growth. There is a very popular myth that marigolds repel insects with their scent, but the truth is actually much more interesting. French marigolds secrete a powerful chemical called alpha-terphenyl from their roots. This chemical completely destroys root knot nematodes in the soil, which are microscopic worms that destroy eggplant roots. Above ground, the bright yellow and orange marigold flowers act as a beacon for hoverflies and ladybugs. These beneficial insects swoop in and devour the aphids and flea beetles that try to attack your eggplants. So, the marigolds are fighting a war on two fronts. They protect the roots underground with chemical warfare, and they call in air support from above. Always plant a thick border of marigolds around your eggplants for a stress-free harvest. For our 9th combination, we are looking at squash and nasturtiums. Zucchini, pumpkins, and winter squash have huge, sprawling vines, but they are constantly terrorized by the squash bug. These grayish-brown insects suck the sap right out of the vines, causing them to wilt and die overnight. Nasturtiums are beautiful, edible flowers with a peppery taste, but to a squash bug, they are absolutely irresistible. By planting nasturtiums a few feet away from your main squash mound, you draw every squash bug in the area away from your food crop. The bugs will happily infest the nasturtiums, leaving your zucchini to grow massive. You can then simply pull up the infested nasturtium plant and throw it in the trash, bugs and all. This sacrifices one small flower to save dozens of pounds of vegetables. Furthermore, nasturtiums release strong volatile oils into the air that confuse the squash vine borer moth. This prevents the moth from laying eggs on the stems of your pumpkins. It is a highly strategic diversion tactic that requires no effort on your part. Let us talk about fruit for a moment. Strawberries and borage are our 10th vital pairing. If you want the sweetest, juiciest strawberries you have ever tasted, you must plant borage nearby. Borage is a fuzzy, blue-flowered herb that is often overlooked, but it is an absolute miracle worker. First, borage attracts honeybees and bumblebees like a magnet. Strawberries require excellent pollination. If a strawberry blossom is only partially pollinated, the berry will grow small and deformed. The bees, drawn by the borage, ensure every single strawberry blossom reaches its full potential. But the real magic happens in the soil. Borage is what we call a dynamic accumulator. Its deep roots mine trace minerals like zinc, potassium, and calcium from deep underground and bring them to the surface. When the borage leaves drop and decay, they feed these premium minerals directly to the shallow strawberry roots. This specific mineral boost actually increases the sugar content in the strawberries, making them taste significantly sweeter. It is a natural flavor enhancer. Pair number 11 is lettuce and chives. Growing crisp, sweet lettuce is a joy until the aphids find it. Aphids love the tender, sugary leaves of spring lettuce. They multiply by the thousands and cover the leaves in sticky honeydew. Chives are the ultimate solution. Because chives belong to the allium family, they produce strong sulfur compounds. When you plant a border of chives around your lettuce patch, the sulfur smell creates an invisible wall that aphids simply refuse to cross. But there is a second reason this pair is brilliant. Lettuce has very shallow roots and needs constant moisture. Chives grow in tight, upright clumps. They provide just enough dappled shade to protect the lettuce from the harsh afternoon sun, preventing the lettuce from turning bitter and going to seed too early. When you harvest your lettuce, you can snip some chives at the same time for a perfect garden fresh salad. It maximizes your garden space and completely eliminates the need for soapy water sprays or chemical aphid killers. Moving on to pair number 12, we have broccoli and rosemary. Broccoli is a robust plant, but its leaves are highly attractive to the cabbage looper moth. This moth relies purely on its sense of smell to find the perfect place to lay its eggs. Rosemary is a tough, woody Mediterranean herb with incredibly potent, piney aromatic oils. When you intersperse rosemary bushes among your broccoli plants, the strong scent of the rosemary acts like a camouflage net. The moth flies over the garden, smelling only sharp pine and resin. It completely misses the broccoli hidden below. This pairing also debunks a common gardening myth. People often say you should never plant herbs with heavy vegetables because they compete for water. But rosemary actually prefers dry, poor soil. while broccoli needs rich, moist soil. By planting the rosemary in well-draining pots placed right next to the broccoli beds, you get the aromatic protection without any root competition. You outsmart the pests and the environment at the same time. Our 13th pair is zucchini and garlic. If you have grown zucchini, you know that your biggest enemy is not always a bug. It is a fungus. Powdery mildew is a white, powdery dust that covers zucchini leaves in late summer, choking the plant and stopping fruit production. Garlic is one of nature's most potent antifungal agents. It accumulates massive amounts of sulfur. When you plant cloves of garlic in a ring around your zucchini mounds, the garlic roots secrete these sulfur compounds directly into the soil ecosystem. The soil fungi absorb it, and it alters the microscopic environment around the zucchini, making it much harder for powdery mildew spores to take hold. Furthermore, the strong scent of the garlic greens repels aphids, which are known carriers of viral diseases that stunt zucchini vines. You plant the garlic in the fall, let it sit over the winter, and plant your zucchini right next to it in the spring. It is a set-it-and-forget-it system that guarantees healthy green leaves all summer long. Pair number 14 brings us to peas and turnips. This is the ultimate cool weather combination. Peas are legumes, meaning they are nitrogen fixers. They have a symbiotic relationship with bacteria in the soil that allows them to capture nitrogen from the atmosphere and store it in little white nodules on their roots. Turnips are heavy feeders that desperately need nitrogen to produce large, crisp roots and healthy green tops. When you plant peas and turnips in the same bed, the peas feed the turnips naturally. As the peas grow upwards on a trellis, the turnips spread outwards, shading the soil and keeping the pea roots cool and moist. This extends the harvest window for the peas, as they will stop producing if the soil gets too hot. Once the peas are finished producing, you cut them off at the soil line. Do not pull the roots out. Leave those nitrogen-rich roots in the ground to decay. They will provide a final, massive burst of fertilizer to the turnips just as they are swelling up for the fall harvest. Our final specific vegetable pair, number 15, is melons and oregano. Growing sweet melons like cantaloupe or honeydew takes up a lot of space. The vines trail everywhere, leaving lots of bare soil exposed to the blazing sun. This bare soil dries out quickly, leading to split, ruined melons. Oregano is a creeping, low-growing herb that loves to spread. By planting oregano as a ground cover under your melon vines, you create a living carpet. This carpet shades the soil, dropping your water requirements by over 50%. But the most important benefit is pest control. Ants and cucumber beetles love to chew on the tough rind of developing melons. The strong, pungent scent of creeping oregano is highly toxic to ants and drives beetles away. The oregano essentially provides a soft, fragrant bed for the heavy melons to rest on, protecting them from soil-borne rot and crawling insects. It is a beautiful aromatic solution to a very frustrating gardening problem. Now that you know the 15 magic pairs, we need to talk about the hidden engine that makes this all work. This brings us to the underground nutrient exchange. When you group these specific pairs together, you're not just mixing leaves. You're cultivating a vast microscopic web called mycorrhizal fungi. Think of this web as the internet of the soil. When a tomato plant creates extra sugars through photosynthesis, It pushes those sugars down into its roots. The fungus takes those sugars and, in exchange, travels far away to bring water and phosphorus back to the tomato. But here is the crazy part. That same fungal thread is also connected to the basil plant next door. If the basil is under attack by bugs, it sends a chemical warning signal through the fungal network. The tomato receives the signal and instantly starts producing defensive chemicals, even before the bug touches it. By planting these pairs together, you are plugging them into a high-speed defense network. Let us talk about how these pairings completely change how you water your garden. The old way of gardening told you to leave massive rows of bare dirt between your plants so you could run a tiller through them. This is the worst thing you can do. Bare soil bakes in the sun, killing the biology and evaporating all your water. When you use our 15 companion pairs, you are utilizing canopy management. The tall plants, like corn or tomatoes, take the direct hit from the midday sun. The shorter plants, like beans, spinach, or oregano, catch the filtered light and completely cover the ground. This multi-level canopy acts like an umbrella. It blocks the wind and traps humidity near the soil surface. Gardeners who use this tight pairing method find they only need to water their beds once a week, even in the dead of summer, compared to watering every single day. You are using the biology of the plants to do the work of a fancy irrigation system. This brings us to a major myth we need to bust right now. The myth of perfect spacing. If you look at the back of a seed packet, it will tell you to thin your carrots to 4 inches apart and plant your onions 6 inches apart. If you follow those rules in a paired bed, you will fail. Nature absolutely hates bare soil. If you leave a gap, nature will fill it with a weed. When you are companion planting, you want the plants to touch. You want the leaves of the radish to mingle with the vines of the cucumber. This gentle crowding creates the microclimate that prevents diseases. The friction of the leaves rubbing together in the wind actually strengthens the stems. As long as you are pairing plants with different root depths, like the deep carrot and the shallow onion, they will not steal nutrients from each other. Ignore the seed packet rules. Plant densely. Let the pairs interlock, and you will choke out every single weed in your garden without ever picking up a hoe. Another secret of planting in pairs is the magic of continuous succession harvesting. When you grow plants together, harvesting one actually triggers a growth explosion in the other. Let us look at the lettuce and chive pairing. When you come through with a knife and cut the head of lettuce away, you suddenly expose the soil to a burst of fresh sunlight. The chives, which were waiting patiently in the dappled shade, absorb that new sunlight and immediately push out a massive flush of new green growth. When you harvest the radishes from the cucumber bed, you leave behind perfectly aerated, empty holes. The cucumber roots instantly rush into those holes to access deeper water reserves. You never have an empty, sad-looking garden bed. By the time one half of your pear is ready to eat, the other half is perfectly positioned to take over the space. It is an automated, zero-effort crop rotation happening in real time right before your eyes. Finally, let us look at how to build a permanent lazy ecosystem that gets better every single year. The true lazy gardener does not start from scratch every spring. Many of the companion herbs we talked about, like dill, borage, and nasturtiums, are prolific self-seeders. If you simply let them drop their flowers at the end of the summer, they will automatically plant themselves perfectly in your beds for the next year. You never have to buy those seeds again. Furthermore, when the winter frost comes and kills the annual vegetables, the biggest mistake you can make is ripping them out by the roots. Leave them. Cut the tomatoes, beans, and peppers at the soil line. The root systems of these paired plants will slowly rot underground all winter, creating perfect, nutrient-rich tunnels for next year's seeds to follow. By using these 15 pairs and leaving the roots intact, you are building soil that is so rich, so black, and so full of life that fertilizer becomes completely obsolete. And there you have it, the incredible truth about vegetable pairing. Who would have thought that the biggest breakthrough in modern gardening is simply letting plants do what they have been doing in the wild for millions of years? We spent decades creating chemical sprays, tilling the earth, and breaking our backs pulling weeds, all because we refused to look at how nature solves its own problems. By pairing carrots with onions to blind root flies, using nasturtiums as a sacrificial trap, and letting beans feed your corn, you are stepping back and letting an ancient biological system take over. The bugs actually taught us this lesson. They showed us where the weaknesses are in a monoculture. When you implement these 15 pairs, your garden stops being a battlefield and becomes a self-defending, highly productive ecosystem. You will save money on sprays, you will save hours of weeding, and most importantly, you will harvest the cleanest, most delicious food you have ever tasted. Thank you so much for watching. If you found these lazy gardening secrets helpful, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It really helps the channel grow. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever accidentally planted two vegetables together and noticed they grew better? Or do you have a secret companion planting trick of your own? Drop a comment down below and share your experience with the community.